Hello everybody, welcome back to 40 Days with Dietrich. Today's excerpt is again taken from A Testament to Freedom. I do want to remind you that we're using this book, A Year with Dietrich Bonhoeffer. It is a book of daily meditations from his letters, his writings, and his sermons. The title given to our excerpt today is Resist Conceit. Dietrich writes, God loves our enemies. The cross tells us that. God suffers on their account, feels anguish and sorrow because of them. God gave the beloved Son for them. That is the whole point. Every time we encounter enemies, we remember at once God loves them. God gave everything for them. Therefore, never be conceited. With respect to our attitude toward our enemies, this means first, remember that you were God's enemy, and that without having earned it or being worthy of it, you were met with mercy. It means second, remember that God hung on the cross for your enemy too, and love God as God loves you. You know, this small little section is just so packed with stuff, and I'm pausing because I'm trying to think of just what do I want to pull out of this, because every single line speaks profoundly of the call to see the face of Jesus in others. And for Bonhoeffer, this was such a reality. And it was something that he had to will himself to do over and over and over again. And he called Christians to will themselves to do over and over and over again. To see somebody who is completely different than we are, who would be classified as the other. And again, that other can be whatever. But instead of seeing them as less than, instead of dehumanizing them, instead of rejecting them or dismissing them based on whatever, Bonhoeffer says, when you see them, you see the face of Jesus. And when you see them, you see the person fundamentally as someone that God loves and that Jesus died for. And this has to change how we live out our relationships in this world. And then he kind of just takes it one more step, because it's not, because it's easy to kind of give lip service to that and say, oh yeah, well of course I'll do that. I'll love everybody else. But then Bonhoeffer roots that in himself and says, because you need to remember that you were the other as well. You need to remember when you see your enemy, when you see the person that you want to dismiss, you need to remember that you were God's enemies. Paul writes about this in Romans, that you were somebody who was against God based on sinfulness. And yet, without you being good enough, without you being smart enough, without you being holy enough, without you being lovely enough, whatever it is, without any of that stuff, God's mercy and God's love came to you, because that is what the gospel means. And if that is something that we receive and that transforms our life, then we have to claim it for others as well. And we have to live it out for others. It means that we remember that God hung on the cross for me, but also not just for me, but for my enemy. And so that last line where he says, love God as God loves you, I'd love to know where this goes further in the Testament to Freedom, because I'm pretty sure he's going to write something a little bit more beyond that. But obviously for Bonhoeffer, it's not just being in our own little silo and saying, well, yes, I love God. For Bonhoeffer, love of God is always going to be expressed in love for our enemies. And so when we recognize that we were God's enemies, when we recognize that God's mercy came to us unearned, then we respond to that love by loving God. But the way we do that is also by loving our enemies, by loving those who are other than us, and expressing towards them radically the life-changing love of God. God bless you as you make your way through this season of Lent. I'd love to hear from you and how you're interacting with these videos and how you're interacting with these meditations. But again, God bless you, and I hope to see you tomorrow.